Okay, we're going on to the actual examples here, and you should try them on your own. So hit pause at any point if you feel like you can do it on your own, especially these first few are pretty standard. So hit pause and try it, and I'm going to go on to do it. Okay, the measure of arc AB is 20 degrees. Okay, this arc is 20 degrees. And the measure of CD is 70. This is a pretty standard problem. Okay, the measure of angle P, the one we want, which is in here. This is angle, let me call it X, or let's just keep it angle P. The measure of angle P is 1/2 the difference of those two arcs, which is 70 minus 20. So it's 1/2 of 50. Measure of angle P then is 25 degrees. Okay. If a lot of you, when you guys are labeling things in your diagram, you do some strange things, like you have an X somewhere and then you use another X, which is obviously not the same. And so make sure when you're labeling things in your diagram, you use different variables. It's totally fine to use X here instead of angle P if you want to make it easier to write, okay? Just make sure whatever you label there is the same as what it is in the diagram. Make sure you answer the question, right? A lot of you on the test had labeled some angle on the kite that was not the angle you wanted to find. And then when you got done, you didn't realize it's not even the answer to the question. So it's a very common thing for students to do that. But, as honor students, you guys should be a little bit better than that. Okay. The next one, we've got, again, 2 secants. Okay. Pretty standard here, but we're probably going to be given a little different information. Let's look. The measure of arc QT. Okay, that's this arc here. The measure of arc QT is the measure of arc QT is 140 degrees. Okay. And then we're given the measure of angle P. Okay, so this time we're given the measure of the angle itself. The angle in there is 40 degrees. Okay. And we're probably going to be looking for an arc. Yeah, we're looking for arc RS, which is this arc in here. We're looking for this arc, okay? So let's go ahead and figure out what the equation would be. The angle, which is 40 degrees, is half the measure of the outer arc minus the measure of the inner arc. And I'm going to call the inner arc N. Okay, and label it in my diagram as such. This is N. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the algebra here. Now here, the algebra is a lot easier if you just go ahead and get rid of that half by multiplying by 2. Otherwise, you're going to multiply by a half in here, distribute, and get a half N, which, a lot of us don't like to deal with it. I don't actually, I love fractions, because I can use them to my advantage. Here, the fraction isn't necessarily to our advantage. Multiply by 2 on both sides, get rid of the half, right? And then you just get what's inside the parentheses because you got rid of the half with the multiplying by 2. Okay? I would add N to both sides and then subtract by 80 on both sides just to get N on the left. That way you get rid of the negative N and you get N is 60 degrees. Okay, pretty simple there, which is the measure of arc RS. Okay, measure of arc RS is 60 degrees. Make sure you answer your question, label it as such. Every time you do that, right, and you take the time to do that, you're less likely when you get to a major assessment like the SAT or just a simple test or quiz in my class. The more you do that, gives you that practice, right? How idiotic is it, right, to find an answer and to not look back at my question and make sure it's the right answer, especially on a multiple choice test. They're going to fool you. So practicing that every single time you do a problem gives you an advantage. Okay. And now number 3, in the accompanying diagram, now we have 2 tangents from an outside point. Okay. And we're given that measure of that angle is 30 degrees. And we're looking for the inner arc, which is BC. This inner arc here, let me call it X. Okay. So obviously these two arcs, the green arc and the red arc orange arc that I marked, are related by an equation that they add up to 360. Okay. So what I can do is I can call that green arc the major arc BC. I don't have another point there, but that major arc is 360 minus x, right? So now I can set up an equation, right? I can set up an equation that my 30-degree angle is 1/2 the difference of those two arcs, which is 360 minus x, which is the bigger arc, right? The outer arc, minus the inner arc, which is x. Okay. Now, I need to simplify that algebra. That is 30 equals 1/2 of 360 minus 2x. Again, make the algebra easier by multiplying by 2 on both sides. You get 60, right? If I multiply this by 2, that cancels the half. And I got 60 on the left equals 360 minus 2x. And add 2x to both sides, subtract 60, you get 2x equals 300. So x equals 150. Okay. Now, plug back into my equation here, make sure it makes sense. 360 minus 150 is 210. And if I take that 210 and subtract the 150, I get 60. 60 divided by 2 is 30. Get the tingles. We're happy. Make sure I answer my question. Find BC, the minor arc. So the measure of arc BC, which was I labeled X here, right? Make sure I labeled X the correct thing, is 150 degrees. Okay. Okay, number 4, and I might make a separate video for number 5 because it's a little bit longer. Let's see if we can get done with number 4 here. In the diagram below, tangent ML. So we got a tangent, and it looks like we got a secant. Yeah, we got a secant MNK. This is a secant. Okay. Remember the relationship of these two arcs. The two arcs cut off, which is this arc here, right? And let me use a different color. And this arc here. That pink and that dark blue arc, if we subtract them and divide by 2, we get the measure of this angle formed by the tangent and secant. Okay. Now, we're given that the ratio, we're going to get the ratio involved here. Okay. Ln to nk to ml is 3 to 4 to 5. Now, whenever you got a ratio like that, what you can do, you don't know what you're multiplying by the ratio, but it's whatever you multiply the 3 by, you got to multiply the 4 by, you got to multiply the 5 by. So what we do is we say they're in the ratio of 3x to 4x to 5x. And we use that to label it in our diagram. Ln then is the first number. Ln corresponds to the first number in the ratio, which is 3x. So I'm going to label that as 3x for Ln, arc Ln. Then arc nk is got to be 4x, right, over here. And then the last arc KL, which is that pink one, is going to be 5x. And lo and behold, that's great because that gives us a formula since they make the complete circle, right? Okay, so if that gives you enough hint, if you were having trouble doing this one, press pause, see if you can finish it at that point. Okay, so we're going to add all these together. 3x plus 4x plus 5x equals 360. That is 9 plus 3 is 12x equals 360. And a good third grade teacher that taught me 36 divided by 12 is 3. Because I learned my 12 times tables in third grade. And if you take and you add a 0, you're just going to add a 0 to that. So it's 30. X is 30. Now, that is just x. We got to find LMK, the angle, but the angle is going to be the difference of those divided by 2. So that's 2x. I'm hurrying here. The measure of angle LMK is 1/2 of, subtract them is 2x, which is 1/2 of it. That's just x, which is 30. Oh, I get the same answer. So the measurement angle is 30 degrees. I got to stop. The video is about to stop.